All right. We are going to get started here. Hopefully you have the week 4 handout in front of you. I'm not sending them out each week because I do some tweaking, and so I'll keep sending these out on Saturdays. But you'll want to have your handout. You're also going to want to have your Shawnee booklet available here too. Okay, so as usual, we're going to be working through both of those. But I wanted to, having covered a lot of material so far, a lot of different parts of musical notation and stuff like that, I want to make sure that we're still keeping in mind what our main focus is here in presenting, especially in terms of kind of the minimum of what we're trying to accomplish. There's a lot more you can do with presenting, but I'm going to try to go over here what kind of the minimum is that we're trying to accomplish as presenters. And we want our worship to be orderly, done decently and in order. And that's one of your key roles as a presenter is to keep things working smoothly. It's, in a sense, if you're doing your job, it shouldn't be particularly noticeable because it should just help. You should be the grease in the gears that just keeps things moving well. And you want to keep the worship and the singing in particular orderly. Now there are ways that you can contribute in the beauty of the singing and things like that, but at the most basic, you just want to keep things going. And I recently saw someone say that, I think this is from Charles McBurney, he said that the presenter's job essentially is to help us start together, to stay together, and stop together. So it's really not that complicated in some senses, that's your job, again, at a minimum, is to start together, to stay together, and to stop together. And so with that in mind, we're going to be talking some about starting and stopping. But as you prepare to present, whether it's beforehand, if you're given the Psalms beforehand, or you're in that awful moment during favorites when somebody picks a Psalm and you have to look at it really quickly and you have no idea whether you know it or not. In that moment, I've given you a couple of questions there that you should be asking yourself. And again, this is kind of the minimum of what you need to know. You look at it and you say, do I know this melody? Or do I know the tune? And so a lot of times you will know the tune. It's a familiar psalm or a familiar tune. Other times you're going to have to pick out, using the tools we've been working on, pick out the notes and the rhythm and see if you can recognize it. And so that's essential. There are some people who can just, there have been times when I'm not sure I know the tune and I just get it started and people get it going and keep it going. That's generally not a good idea to do that, though. You kind of do want to make sure you have a sense of the tune. Then you need to know how many beats per measure, right? This is what we've been talking about quite a bit over the last couple weeks. You need to know what pattern you're going to be beating, right? And then you also need to know what key it's in, or at a minimum, what the starting pitch is. So at the very least, you need to look at the page and the top note and the first note. You need to know what note that is so you can blow it on a pitch pipe. Ideally, you'd be able to give people the triad, which we talked about last week and we'll do again this week, to give them a sense of the key. You need to know the key signature for that. But at a minimum, you need to be able to give people a pitch. And then you also need to know which beat of the measure we're starting on. And I haven't talked about this a lot, and I realize this is something that I haven't been covering very well. But let's say we have a tune here like this, and we'll say it's in G, and it's in 4/4, and wait, is that the right order? Yes, okay. And let's say you have a note down here, and then there's a line right away. And you look at this and you say, okay, this is supposed to have 4 beats in the measure, right? 4 on top. I should have asked you and made you guys say that. How many beats in the measure for this? Simeon? 4. 4, thank you. Okay, so there's 4 beats in the measure, right? But then you've got 1 beat and then the line, right? Or sometimes you might see... might even see 2 beats. 2 beats and then a line. And you say, that's not the way this is supposed to be. There's supposed to be 4 beats in a measure. But you'll notice that it's only right before this first line. And what that's called is a pickup note. And so sometimes the first note you're singing is actually on beat 4 of the measure. And we'll talk some more about that here in a little bit. Sometimes it'll be on beat 3. Sometimes it'll even be halfway in between 3 and 4. That's one of the hardest ones to do. But you need to know which beat of the measure it starts on so that you are beating the right beat when you get started so that you aren't doing the downbeat at the wrong time. So these are kind of the most basic things. Before you can start a tune for a congregation or for a group of people singing, do you know the melody? How many beats are there in the measure? And which motion should you do with that? What key is it in, or at least what note does it start on? And which beat of the measure does it start on? So where should you be starting in your beating motion? Those are, you do also need to know how quickly you're going to be singing. That often just sort of goes naturally. If you don't think about it very carefully, it'll sometimes happen naturally with the congregation. But I'm trying to boil this down to the most essential elements, and then there's a lot we can add to this and a lot of things that I'd like you to be keeping track of as well. But I wanted to give you some of those basic building blocks to start with. Okay, if you have a book of Psalms for worship here, get your psalters ready to go. We're going to do a little bit of practice at the beginning here before we get into some more musical things. I was talking last week with Allison, who's joining us from Ireland. This is the Irish Psalter, if you guys have never seen it. And this is a split leaf. So it has tunes up top, and you can match the tune with the different words on the bottom. And so the job of the presenter is way harder in Ireland because you have to pick the tunes to go with each psalm. And there are suggestions in the back, and that's all pretty neat. But I mentioned this earlier, they don't actually give you the time signature. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if that's a cultural thing or what it is, but they don't give you the time signature. You just have to figure it out from looking at the music. But I'll try to give tune names as we're going along here, so it might help anybody who doesn't have or who is working from the Irish Psalter. Okay, Psalter. Somebody pick a psalm. We're gonna do 5 psalms again this time, and we're gonna try to figure out a few things about the psalm each time. Okay, somebody give me a psalm. 72E. Okay, so 72E in the Book of Psalms for Worship. That's the tune Sia Humba. Sia Humba, which I don't think is in the Irish Psalter. Okay, I'd like you to tell me how many beats per measure, what pattern you should do, and you can either tell me what key it's in or the starting note. So somebody want to give it a shot? Simeon.
So there's 4 beats in the measure.
4 beats in the measure. How do you know that?
4/4.
4/4, and the top number is 4, right? Okay, so what's the pattern for that?
Down, in, out, up.
That's right. Down, in, out, up. Down, in, out, up. Okay? And do you want to tell me what key it's in or just what note it starts on?
I'll just tell the starting note.
Okay.
D.
That's a start. It's on a D. That's correct. Does anybody else want to tell us what key it's in? It's got 1 sharp. You can look at your guide. Karis? It's the key of G. That's right. Oh, okay. It's the key of G. And then I didn't tell you, I was going to tell you this, but Simeon, do you know which beat of the measure it starts on?
4.
Beat 4, right? So if it's 4 quarter notes in the measure, then 2 eighth notes equals 1 quarter note, right? That's what we talked about this a while back. But 2 of those flag notes, so we've got, we've got a note that kind of looks like this to start with, right? That's exactly like that. Okay, so that's just 1 beat. It's only 1 beat. So that means you're starting. So in your motion, which beat do you start on? The up, right? So you start on, He will save the needy when they call. Okay, we'll get into how you start that here today. All right, somebody else give me a psalm. And somebody online can tune in if you want, or can chime in if you want. I'm going to start picking crunchy minor ones if you guys don't pick them. 100D. 100D. And that is the tune Enter. Enter, 100D. Okay, give me how many beats per measure, what the beating pattern is, and then either the starting note or the key signature. Who suggested that? Did you say, was that you, Lydia? Do you want to try it?
Sure.
Okay, so how many beats per measure?
2.
And how do you know that?
It's 2 on top.
That's right, 2-4, which means 2 beats in the measure. So what's your pattern for that? Nike swoosh, right? Down, up, down, up. And it's not a side. If anybody's confused about that, it's not actually the Nike swoosh like this. That would be confusing. It's down. It's a 90 degrees twisted Nike swoosh, right? Swoosh. So down, up, down, up. Now, which beat of them? Or no, I was going to have you tell me. You want to give me the key signature or the starting note? Okay. The key of C. How do we know that? No sharps and flats. The piano player's friend, right? No sharps and flats, so it's the key of C. And which beat of the measure does it start on? 1, right? You have 2. So you have 4. You have a dotted eighth and a 16th, which makes 1 beat. And you have 2 eighth notes, which makes another beat. So you have 2 whole beats before the next measure, which means you're starting. So where are you starting in your motion? With the downbeat, right? So make a joyful noise, shout to the Lord, all the earth, serve the Lord with gladness, right? Okay. I keep saying right because I'm hoping you guys are tracking with me, but I shouldn't be assuming that. So, all right. Somebody give me another psalm. Olivia.
Do that 2-4. Does it matter if you go? Does it matter if you go in or out? Does it?
Okay, so the question is on the swoosh, on the Nike swoosh. If you're doing a little bounce at the bottom, I don't know if it matters if it goes one way or the other. I usually go out for some reason. I think you could go in.
Out, it's easier to hold notes if you have to.
Okay.
Like, if there's a fermata or something, and you have, or even at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
So
if you're going in, it's.
that's a good point. So Maria's pointing out that if you come in, you're it's kind of harder to see when it's up against your body like this. If it's out, it's easier, and you can also hold it out if you have to do a fermata, which we haven't gotten to yet. Don't worry about fermatas yet. But I would say out is generally better. I think that's also why you do 3 out, because it's more visible. It's out here, and you're less likely to hit your psalter with your hand. So, okay, another psalm. 41D. Okay, D. Well, I don't have a D. I have 41C. Let's do C. Okay, 41C. That was our doxology this morning, actually. Okay, so somebody want to tell me, again, how many beats per measure, what the motion is for that, what note you're starting on, or the key signature, and then which beat of the measure. So who wants to try? Anybody online or in person? Olivia, want to try? Okay.
3 beats.
3 beats, how do you know that?
Because
It says 3-4, right? So 3 quarter notes in every measure, so it's 3 beats. And what's the pattern? Down, out, up. Down, out, up. Okay, now we've got 3 flats. Do you want to tell me the key signature, or do you want to just tell me the starting note? You can just do the starting note if that's easier. Not quite. So look at your chart. If you've got your booklet.
What's the trick for flats?
Yeah, who can tell me the trick for flats to tell you the key signature? Karis, what's the trick for flats? You go to the flat on the. Which side do you start on? Do you start on the right side or the left side? The right. Okay, that's right. So you go all the way to the right, just like you said, all the way to the right in the flats, and then you go back 1. So what does that mean this key signature is? Key of E flat. That's right. Okay, and this is the tune alpha, I should have said. So it's the key of E flat, but that's not the starting note. Who can tell me what the starting note is? You guys are mouthing it. You may as well just say it. G, right? Okay, it's
Oh, wait, I was looking.
the note is G, right? Okay, which beat of the measure does it start on? Yes, the downbeat. Yes, beat 1. That's correct. So where in your motion is that going to be? Down. Down on the downbeat, right? Okay, the first beat's down, okay? So it's blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel. Okay, let's do one more. I think that's only going to be 4. But.
See, IRR mean irregular after the two names?
Yes, IRR after the tune name means irregular. That means it doesn't actually have a meter. The words just flow with the music. It doesn't have a poetic meter. It has. We won't get into all that. Okay, one more psalm, and we got to get into our 43B. I'm gonna take that one, Simeon. Sorry. 43B. Thank you. That's great. 43B. Somebody want to tell me, and I'm gonna have somebody online do this one. Give me how many beats per measure, what the beating pattern would be, and then the starting note or the key, and then which beat it starts on. Somebody want to take a stab at it? And this is the tune St. Chrysostom, 43B.
So how many beats in measure? Yep, say it loud.
3 beats in measure. Good job. Okay. And let's see. What's the beating pattern for that? What are you supposed to do with your arm?
So how are you gonna wave your hand? Show them how you're gonna wave your hand at this 3. You remember? Yeah. Do it in the camera.
That's right. Down, out, up. Down, out, up. Good job. That's great. Okay. And then do you want to tell me the starting note, or do you want to tell me the key signature?
You know which note it starts on? No. We're going to go with a no on that.
No on that one. Okay. Somebody want to help him out? Who can tell me the starting note or the key signature? Simeon.
F sharp.
F sharp is the starting note. Yep. And now we've got 2 sharps. Looks like this. Okay. Who can tell me what key that is?
D.
The key of D. Does anybody? That's correct. Does anybody remember the trick for the key for the sharps? Yes, Karis.
So this is how my teacher taught me, that you go over and then you get pricked, and then you jump up 1, and then you look down 1 to see if there's any more sharps, and if there's not, it's just a key of D. If there's a sharp, it's D sharp.
Okay. All right. So that's a good idea. Oh man, that's added an extra layer. Okay. So Karis was saying the trick that she learned is you go over to the farthest right sharp, and you get pricked by the sharp-looking sharp, right? And so you jump up, you get your finger back, and you jump up to the next line, right? So this is a C sharp, so we get pricked by that, and we jump up to the D line, which means the D key of D. Now, in most of the Psalms in the Psalter, that's all you need to know. But Karis added to that you do have to look back, and if you see that there is a sharp on that same line, it's actually that sharp of that key. So if it was in D sharp, then that would, I think that makes sense. But we don't have to deal with that in the Psalter, I don't think. So just the jumping up from the sharp, the last to the right sharp, going up to the next space or line, tells you what key you're in. So this is the key of D. All right, now who can tell me what beat in the measure we're starting on?
First beat.
First beat, the downbeat. That's right. Okay, so it's oh vindicate me, plead my cause. Okay, so that's a little bit more practice. We're going to keep, in future weeks, we're going to be doing even more of that, and I'm going to be making you guys stand up and wave your hands and things like that. So, but we have some more content to cover here today, and I wanted to go back and look again at giving the pitch. So if you can have your Shawnee booklets open to page 5, it has some of the tips for determining the key. And then if you flip back to turn the page to page 6, you might want to have that in front of you, be flipping back and forth there because page 6 has all those key signatures on it. So if you remember last time, I was talking about how when you are giving people the pitch, you can either just give them the note, the starting note, but I think it's better to give them a sense of home. You want to give them a sense of the key you're singing in, because that is where you're going to start. That's you always start on the the major or minor triad of the key that we're singing in. You'll always end there. And so by humming that triad, you're giving people that sense of home. You're also giving the people singing parts a reference point to see where they're supposed to be singing. And so it's a really good thing to be able to give people this triad. Now, when we talked about this last time, but the triad involves the root of the chord, the third of the chord, or the root of that scale, and then the third in that scale, and the fifth. So if you remember, I went through, we talked briefly about the idea that most of the tunes in the Psalter are based on the major scale, which is da 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 dum, or do re mi fa sol la ti do, and that's a normal sounding succession of notes. And we won't get into all the details of why that works the way it does. But if you go count up with numbers, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1, then the triad is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 3, 5. And so I want you guys just to get that sound of a major triad just burned into your brain. It's just a really handy thing to know what it is and to be able to hear that. Okay, so let's just let me get us a D here. And we'll sing this together on La, just up and down this major triad. That's a little bit flat. So we'll just say la 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 together. Ready? La 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 la. Do it again. La 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 la. Okay, and this time we're going to go up and then just jump back down to 1. So la 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 la. Do that again. La 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 la. You just want to, you got to get that burned into your head. This is what a major triad sounds like, because that's how you give people the pitch. Because in every tune in the Psalter, in this key of D major like this, you will start on one of these 3 notes. You will start on D or F sharp or A, and it might be the A down here, which is still an A. There are some keys where you're going to actually bump down all the way down to the 3rd below. That's too low in the key of D. But it's going to be one of these 3 notes, a D, F sharp, or an A. And so what I was teaching you last week was in a major key. So if we start on the 3rd, not on the root, we start on the 3rd, then I would go, and everybody is supposed to just know in the congregation that last note that I hummed is the note we're starting on. But by doing that, you've given them this sense of home, right? The sense of this is where we're starting, this is where we're going to end. And I think we talked about that when I go down, I often just go, if I could hit that note. Sometimes I'll go up just to make sure people know it's in major. So, okay? So that's what we covered before. Now, as I said, the problem is we've just worked really hard to learn all of our major key signatures, and then it comes in minor to wreck everything. Okay? So we're going to go back to the key of C here, and this is what is on your handout. The C major triad is right here. C, E, and G. So this is la 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 la, right? That's your C major triad. Now, to make a triad minor, you have to lower the middle note. Okay, so a C major chord, you can see that on the piano keys on your handout. The major triad is la 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 la. But then the minor chord, no matter what key you're in, you actually want to drop the middle note a half step. And it sounds like la 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 la. So major is la 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 la. Sounds happy, sounds light, sounds good, right? And then you have minor, which my kids say sounds scary or sounds, Sounds sort of tense, right? La, 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 la. Some people say it sounds sad. And so you'll notice the minor tunes, for the most part, are set to more lamenting psalms or grieving psalms. But you need to get that sort of idea of a minor and major key and a minor and major triad into your head. So I want to look at Psalm 2. This gives us an example of this. Psalm 2a, which is Salzburg. The tune is Salzburg. 2a. Who can tell me what key we're in? We got two sharps. It's the key of D, right? Somebody else said it, and I was looking at you. Anyway, okay. The key of D. And which note in the triad are we starting on? The fifth. Yep, I heard someone say it. Which is A, right? So if we are in D, and we're going to just sing a verse of this together. And I want somebody, at the end of it, I want somebody to tell me if this sounds major or minor. So, why do Gentile nations rage and their useless plots design? Kings of earth in schemes engage, rulers are in league combined. They speak out against the Lord, his Messiah they defy. Let us break their chains and cords, let us cast them off, they cry. Okay, does that sound major or minor? Major. It actually does some funky things in the middle, but it starts and ends nicely in major. Right? Da 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 dum. Da 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 dum. Da 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 dum. That's a very major sound. Right? Da 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 dum. Now turn the page to 2B. And this is the tune Aberystwyth. 2B. And we're just going to sing that first verse together. What did you say? We don't often sing this one, but it's a good tune. This is one of your funky time signatures. It's 4-2. So 4 beats in the measure, but it's a half note that gets the beat. All right, we'll sing this together and listen to if this is major or minor. Why do Gentile nations rage and their useless plots design? Kings of earth in schemes engage, rulers are in league combined. They speak out against the Lord, his Messiah they defy. Let us break their chains and cords, let us cast them off, they cry. Okay, that one did some funky stuff in the middle too, but is that minor or major? Minor.
It looks like the key of G.
So it looks like the key of G, but it's actually another key, and we'll look at that here. We'll start doing that here in just a second. But that's a good psalm to, if you want to learn the sound of the major scale or the minor scale going up. This is a good one because it goes da 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 dum. You get that da 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 dum sound? That's the minor scale going up. So get used to that sound of minor versus major. Okay, now the real trouble here is, let's actually stay on that example. 2B, Aberystwyth, I think. The problem here is, what key, if that was a major key signature, what key would that be? G, right? One sharp, so that's G. But it's not in G. So how on earth do we figure this out? Other than memorizing all of the minor and major key signatures, which you may do, and it might be good for you to do. But what do you do to tell if it's major or minor? Okay. Yeah, look at the handy chart. Well, that's actually true, yes. Just cut out this little chart from your book and keep it in your Psalter, and you can always look it up if you need to. That's your backup. But we can combine a couple of tips that we've used before. I think it was Maria pointed out last week that the bass note at the very end of the tune, in I think every tune in the Psalter, the bass note at the end is your key signature. Okay, so if you turn the page back to 2A, we said that was in the key of D. What's the last bass note? A D. If you look at the next page at 2C, it's also in the key of D. What's the last bass note? A D. And the next page, well, that's another minor one. 3A. If you look at 3A, this is the New Britain tune, Amazing Grace. It's in the key of G. And what's the last bass note? G. Okay. This is this is a really handy way to know what key you're singing in. But the problem is, as we see on 2B, that trick only works if you're only thinking about major key signatures. Well, that trick doesn't tell you whether it's major or minor, I should say. So when you look at that last bass note, what key are we in 2B? If you look at the last bass note. The key of E, right? But then you look at the key signature and it looks like G. And the way that a cheater way to do this is to say, okay, look at the last bass note. If it matches the major key signature as its major key signature, then it's major. If it doesn't match, it's minor. Does that make sense? So if it matches what you expect the major key, so you look at the key signature and say that's in G, then look at the last bass note. If they match, then it's major. Look at the key signature, but if they don't match, then that means it's minor. That's sort of a shortcut way to come at this. There's also, it's also helpful to remember that so every minor key is a minor third down from the major key that shares its same key signature. We call this a relative major and relative minor. So if you look at, what did I do with my eraser? There we go. So if we're in the key of E minor, or well, G or E minor, you see this would be G. We normally think this is G, but the relative minor is a minor third. You just jump down a space and a line. If this was, well, we'll just ignore the key signature here. But if in C, the relative minor is A down below it. You just jump down a space and a line. If it's D, then the relative minor is B minor. So that's it can be helpful to keep that. If you know that, it might be helpful to know that it's always going to be a minor third down. So if you see no flats or sharps like this, you know it's either C or a minor third down from C. You know it's C or A minor.
Brian, what's that song that changes from major to minor?
Oh, I was afraid you were going to ask that.
It switches in the middle.
There's a tune that changes in the middle, and they've got to make it hard for all of us. 132, I think you're right, Simeon. 132A, it does change in the middle of the tune just to make life difficult for you. And
Well,
so...
That's not quite the one I was thinking of, but
Okay, there might be another one too.
Well, I was thinking 32C.
Oh, 32C changes in the middle as well. You're right.
That's the one that
And that's the one we sing more often.
that's when I
It's
was
funny that
thinking,
it's 132 and 32.
Yeah.
So it's St. Andrew of Crete for 132A and then Vox Delecti for 32C.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah, so 32C starts in G minor with two flats and then changes to G major. But your trick still works, actually. If you look, you see it has two flats, which should be, what key should two flats be? B flat, right? You jump back one from the right, you go one flat in and you get a B flat. But then look at the last bass note. It's a G, so it's not a B flat, so you know it starts in minor. That wouldn't always work, but that still works in most of these cases. Okay, I really don't have I'm not sure that there really is a fantastic shortcut way of doing this. It's just kind of one of the hard things about presenting. The more you learn your key signatures and you don't have to think about it or look it up, the better off you're going to be. If I'm being perfectly honest, I've gotten to the point where I don't think about the tricks or anything. I just recognize, okay, 4 flats, that's A flat. So and if you can get there, it makes life a lot easier. That's going to take a while. Don't despair if you're not getting there. But I'm not sure that there are always going to be tricks to figure these things out. And I'm sorry, it's tough. Any questions on figuring out whether you're doing a major or a minor? Okay, let's keep plugging here. I think we might have to do some more of this next week because we can't do a full treatment of this week with the time we have left. But I want to talk about starting and stopping here. Your job, if you want to turn to page 8 of the Shawnee booklet, and we've just been talking about which pattern to do, right? We were talking a little bit about which beat in the measure you start on. So you know which one. So does it start on the downbeat? Does it start on the upbeat? Does it start somewhere in between? And I will just tell you that Ron Patterson and I come from different schools on how to start things. So I will let you read his method there, but I'm going to be teaching you what I was taught. And what I was taught, and I think is most helpful, is to beat one beat before you want people to start singing. So the way this would look is if you're starting, so let's look at, let's see, 61A. That's the tune Lions. There is a tune called Sterling named after our town, but this is not named after lions up the road, I don't think. 61A. This is in, how many beats per measure for this? 3. So it's in 3/4. It's in the key of G. If you look at that bass note at the end. And it starts on the 5th on the D, but it starts down. It's on the 5th down here. So this is the key in G, but we go, instead of going up to one of these notes, we're coming down to the D. So I would go, and which beat of the measure does it start on?
4, 3.
3, that's right. We had 2 votes for 3 and 1 for 4. There is no 4th beat, so. All right, the 3rd beat, the last beat, which is, in your pattern, which one is that? Up, right? Okay, so the method I'm teaching you says, if you want people to start singing on up, you actually need to do an outbeat first. So I would go, I would hold my hand up like this, hold the psalter and everything. I would go, oh God, hear my cry. So everybody try that with me, okay? So hold your hand out. You ready? And the idea here is we want to start on this beat. To get people to do that, we have to do one out here first. So we ready? Oh God, hear my cry. Let's try that again. You ready? Oh God, hear my cry. So one way you can think about this is that first beat is the breath beat. It sort of tells people when to go and get ready to sing. And you actually hear it. If you pay attention, you may hear this in the congregation, that if the precenter's doing his job, people are going to breathe at the same time before they sing. So the first thing you're doing together is breathing together before you sing. And the first beat tells them when to do that. So you go, oh God, hear my cry. And they will actually probably more likely follow what you're doing with your body, with your face, than what you're doing with your hand. So if you're going, they will see that, and they will do it with you. So you go, oh God, hear my cry. All right, now let's try a different one that starts on a different beat. I'll have pickups. Let's start with, let's pick a different one. 68C. So Park Street, the tune Park Street. 68C. We're still in or what key are we in? Somebody look at the last bass note, 68C.
G.
The key of G, right? And which note in the triad are we starting on? One of these ones. 1, right? The root, 1. The key of the G. So I would hum. But which beat do we want to start singing on? Beat 1. So which beat do we start with beating? Start beating first.
3.
3.
Yeah.
Start with up. So we go, so I'd hold my hand out and we go, when with your people. All right, do it with me again. Most of you are, but let's do it together. Ready? When with your people you went forth. Okay, that's how you start. We're going to revisit this again next week, if you can help me remember. I'm going to revisit this again next week, because we're going through this quickly. But then to stopping, Ron and I think agree on this one. In the booklet there, he says, move hand slowly for last note, give some warning before the cutoff, and close hand or fingers, stop motion, and stop singing. I love that he tells you to stop singing, because you got to remember to stop singing. Okay, the idea here, what I was always taught, is that the last note that you sing, you beat for that note, but then you stop beating and just hold your hand out until it's time to stop singing that note and close it off. Okay, so if we're still on 68C, if we get down to the end there, the last line says, before the God of Israel. So normally, there's a whole measure there at the end. Normally you would do 3 beats for that measure, right? But if it's the last note, you stop beating and you just close it off when it's over. So we go, before the God of Israel. Now, I said the last note because there are times, often it's a whole measure at the end. There are times, so look at 76A, that's Regent Square, the tune 76A. What beat does the last note start on? There's 4 beats in the measure. What beat does the last note start on 76A?
2.
Not quite.
Starts on 1 and 3.
3. Starts on 3. That's right. Okay, because you have 2 beats before that one. So this go. I had my note a second ago. Hold on.
Oh, wait, what does it start on?
The last note. We're looking at the very last note. So, that is truly known in Judah. So the last line is, their ward, shield, and sword made still. So you have a downbeat and an inbeat. Oh, were we in the wrong psalm? Okay, 76A, Regent Square is the tune. So you go, so watch, we're doing 4 beats, right? But we need to end on a 3rd beat, which feels a little bit odd. So you go, their war, shield, and sword made still. Normally your 3 would be out here, right? But the last note you always want to do up. You want to do up where everybody can see it. So sword made still. And you have the power, the whole congregation, to close everything off, right? Don't abuse it. Their war, shield, and sword made still. So whatever beat the last note's on, you want to do that last beat up and then close it off. Okay, we are going to do some more on that. We're going to review that next time because we didn't have a lot of time to spend time on it today. Okay, for practice this week, I want you to sit down with your Psalter like you usually do on a Friday night. Sit down with your Psalter and go to a random page and determine the key signature, and then just keep turning the page and finding the key signature until you find a minor tune. And then close your book and do it again. And what I want you to see is the major tunes are a lot more common than minor tunes. So you're gonna hopefully, if probability works for us, you're gonna find a few major tunes before you ever run into a minor tune. But it'll start to give you a sense of how many major and minor tunes there are, and you'll get more and more familiar with some of those key signatures that you're gonna see all the time. The other thing I want you to do this week, when you're listening to music, it could even be just background music somewhere where you are. If you're listening to music, try to listen and see if it sounds like that major scale, the da 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 da, or the minor scale, the da 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 da, that sort of sad, dark sound. And listen to the music and say, okay, is this major or is this minor? And get that major minor thing into your head. Okay, some random tips for the week, things that you just have to know. I would recommend that you get up front. If you're presenting, get up to the front quickly. Don't waste time while you're getting up to the front. But once you're up there, don't rush to start the song. You want to get up there quickly so you're not keeping people waiting. But once you get up there, you want to wait till everybody's ready. And you should be up looking around to see if people are ready. And a good hint here is to listen for the rustling of pages. If you're still hearing the rustling of the pages, wait. This is something they told us in seminary when we're reading the Bible in worship. Wait till you stop hearing the rustling of pages because people aren't ready. The Bibles aren't open yet. Same with the psalm book. If you're still hearing rustling of pages, don't start the psalm yet. And it feels awkward because you're standing up there waiting, but it's better for everybody if you can start together. That's one tip this week. The other tip, with all of these things I've been throwing at you and all of these people looking at you when you're presenting, just relax. Almost nobody out there is rooting against you. Your siblings may be rooting against you if you have any. But generally speaking, people want to praise God. You need to do this job to help people be able to do that together. But nobody's up there. There shouldn't be anybody up there just scowling at you and critiquing you and thinking that you're just terrible and all those kinds of things. If they are, shame on them. That's not the point of this, right? This is about praising God together. And so if you're really worried by this, if you're afraid of being up in front of people, if you get nervous in front of people, trust me, the people here love you. For you here, I can't speak for you and people in your churches, but the people here love you and they want you to succeed and they're rooting for you. So, and like any skill, it's going to take a while before it feels natural or automatic. I would say I was shocked how long it took for it to feel like I really felt comfortable and knew what I was doing. And I would feel like, yeah, I got this. And I'd get up there and all of a sudden it all feels weird again and I can't do it very well. And just take your time. It's going to be okay. That was a lot of material again this week. Any questions from anybody?
Can I ask another thing? What does it matter whether it's major or minor? Like, is that you were saying? Is that kind of how kind of upbeat it is, or is that?
Yeah. So the reality is, you sing different notes if it's minor or major. So if you sing. So that tune that we were singing earlier, 2B, which is Aberystwyth. I don't know if you have Aberystwyth in the Psalter. But 2B in Aberystwyth, if it was in major, you would actually sing it differently because that major third would be slightly higher. So on that first line, if it was major, it would be, why do Gentile nations rage? If it's minor, it's, why do Gentile nations rage? That middle note in that line going up, that third in the chord is going to be lower. So you actually are singing slightly different notes. And I've sort of been talking about it as feeling sad or feeling happy, but it's because you're singing slightly different notes. So it's kind of fun sometimes to take a tune that's in minor and sing it in major just to mess with it. But I just mean on your own. I don't mean in worship. But it actually, does that make sense that you're actually singing different notes if it's minor or major?
See, I actually think my Psalter, it has the name. I think it's timed differently as well as that.
Okay, so you'd sing the minor ones different, the timing differently.
I think it's different because it actually is it's got one sharp up the top, so it's either a G major or an E minor.
Right. So that's E minor. That's what we have too. It's in E minor.
Okay.
And so the idea is you're singing. You're actually singing all the same notes as a G major, but you're starting it down lower on the E. And so I'm not explaining this very well. I'm sorry. But does that... if you're singing in minor, you actually have to sing slightly different notes from when you're singing in major in the same key,
Okay.
or from the starting.
You might think of it in terms of the difference between do, re, mi, and the do in a minor key starts in different place. It starts at E, whereas in a major key it starts. In this case, it's going to start on a G.
Right. So.
Does that help?
Oh, you bet, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and there are tons of ways of coming at this. There are tons of different angles you can come at this, and you might try looking up if this major minor distinction. You might just try looking up on YouTube. There's all kinds of good music theory short videos on YouTube that someone could explain better than I have the difference between major and minor, and that might help you out. Any other questions today?
I have a particular starting and ending song, or how you start and how you end.
Sure.
Particular.
And then, just real quick, Deborah, I think you were muted. We'll get to your question after this. Go ahead, Maria.
40A.
Yes, 40A.
I don't know how to end lines because of where you're supposed to hold.
For the fermata?
Yeah.
Okay, so we haven't gotten to the fermata. Everybody keeps wanting me to jump to the fermatas. No, okay, so that little bird's eye thing up over the last note in the line in 40A is called a fermata, and that tells you to hold the note as long as you want, or a little bit longer, and it's up to the presenter how long you hold it. So, the way I was taught to do fermatas is you do it like the end of the verse. So you'd go, he stooped and heard my cry. Oh wait, cry. So I would do.
You hold it up
Yeah.
and in, or do you go out?
I do it out because I do it just like the ending of a stanza. So I'd go down, out, up, which feels weird, but I'd go down, out, then up for the fermata and hold it out there, and then close it off and go back into your next. Close it off and go back into your next beat.
Okay. And then 83, how do you, because it starts on a rest, I don't know what beat to start it in on. And the rest is only half of the beat.
Yep, this is a bad one. Okay, I mean, it's good. It's a great song, but so it starts on a rest, and I would do do not be, wait, that's on 3. Let's actually talk about that the next time, Maria. If you can help me remember, there's a couple of different ways of approaching when you have 3/8 notes before a 4/4 measure.
Okay.
It happens in 73C. It happens in they don't have the rest there, but it happens in 73C and 102A, I think. There's a couple more where we have 3/8 notes before the measure. So we'll get to that. Help me remember to do that next week. Deborah, did you have a question? Oh, I think you're still muted. Sorry.
Says on mute. Okay, I'm looking at it wrong.
That's all right.
With the trot, when you're doing the chord,
Mm-hmm.
do, mi, so, for a minor chord, it begins. It's on the la, so it's la do mi do la, and it gives you that whole sense of the chord.
Yeah. So if you stuck with the do re mi from the major chord, it would be la do mi do la, which is a little bit. That's hard for my mind to go around that, but yes, that's correct. Yep.
That's right.
That's right.
It makes it easier for me.
There you go. And that's what's great about this is we all have different ways of coming at it, and that makes sense. I've just never thought of it that way. That's great.
Yeah, and the songs that she was pointing out, with the 3 notes, I do a quick, like a 3, and then go into 4.
Yes, that's one way to do it, is to do a quick 3 and then or there's some people do the Christmas tree. There's all kinds of ways. So we'll talk about it next time because there are a couple different approaches for doing that. All right. It's been good to be together. If you have more questions, we're going to finish up here.